The early morning swallowed the desolate landscape of the I-70 in Kansas, turning everything around me into an endless void. My name is Lucas Brennan, a truck driver for over 10 years. I was headed to St. Louis carrying metal parts, a heavy load that creaked in the trailer with every bump. It was 2:17 a.m. No lights in the rearview mirrors, no cities nearby, just the road and that suffocating darkness. The only sound was the monotonous hum of the engine and the rustling of the wind cutting through the cab. The radio, tuned to some AM station, only spat out static interspersed with distorted snippets of music. I kept myself awake on warm Monster energy drinks and paranoia because I've seen it all on the roads. Bizarre accidents, dead animals in positions that made no sense, people walking alone on the shoulder miles from any town. But that night, the silence had a different weight. That's when I saw it. Up ahead, on the right side of the highway, an old rust-colored pickup truck was stopped with its hazard lights blinking. The light blinked too slowly, as if it were malfunctioning. Normally, I wouldn't think twice. Truckers help each other out, but something made me grip the steering wheel tighter. Maybe it was the way the truck bed seemed abandoned for too long, as if it had been there before the road was even built. Maybe it was the fact that, despite the driver's side door being ajar, there was no one around. That's when my headlights illuminated something on the asphalt. A glimmer. Small metallic reflections scattered in the darkness. I furrowed my brow, not slowing down. My brain took an extra second to process. Spikes. A row of nails welded to strips of metal strategically placed to puncture tires. A chill ran down my spine. This wasn't an accident. It was a trap. My instinct screamed. I let go of the accelerator, but didn't touch the brake. Slowing down too much here would be the same as begging to get caught. It was at that moment I saw the movement at the edge of my peripheral vision. Someone had slipped into the ditch next to the pickup truck. A shadow, quick and low, moving against the dark grass. My heart raced, my breath shortened. I yanked the wheel hard to the left, dodging the spikes by mere inches. The truck shook with the force of the maneuver, the tires scraping the edge of the opposite lane. And then they came out of the woods, 2 men, running straight toward me. The first one was holding something in his hands, something long and thin, gleaming under the headlights. The second moved too fast, arms raised, as if he was going to jump into the cab. My blood froze. Instinctively, my foot slammed the accelerator. The truck roared, the engine vomited power into the wheels. One of the men raised his arm, pointing the object a revolver, a crowbar. I didn't have time to figure it out. They passed so close that I could see the details on their faces. Ski masks, wide eyes, predators. My mind screamed not to look back, but the damn curiosity won. I glanced into the rearview mirror and wished I hadn't. My eyes glued to the mirror. What I saw made my stomach drop into a frozen abyss. The 2 men had stopped in the middle of the road, but they weren't running away. They just stood there, motionless, watching me drive away. The old pickup truck kept blinking its failing lights like a sinister beacon in the middle of nowhere. But that wasn't what made me shiver from head to toe. It was the third man. He was inside the pickup truck. I saw him for only a fraction of a second, a shadow in the passenger seat, a pale face unmoving the dull gleam of eyes that were following me. But that wasn't all. He was smiling. Not a normal smile. It was something empty, inhuman, a stretch of lips devoid of emotion, of purpose, as if he already knew the outcome before everything even began. My chest tightened. My foot pressed harder on the accelerator. I wasn't going to stop. I wasn't going to think. I was just going to run. 16 miles later, I was still shaking. Finally, I spotted an open gas station. The first sign of civilization since that trap. I pulled the truck over to the shoulder with sweaty hands and my heart pounding like a drum in my throat. I grabbed my phone with trembling fingers and dialed 911. The operator picked up quickly, his voice monotone. "Emergency. What is your location?" I tried to explain. The pickup truck, the spikes, the men running, the smile of the third man. The operator was silent for a few seconds. Then he said something that sent a sharp chill down my spine. "Can you repeat the location?" I did. My chest was rising and falling, breathless. Another silence, a very long silence. Then came the line. "Sir, there is no broken pickup truck on that road." My mouth went dry. "That doesn't make sense. I saw it. They were there. They chased me. We've dispatched a unit," but another pause. There are no reports of incidents like that on this stretch of highway. My head was pounding. This couldn't be possible. So what was it that I saw? More silence. The kind of silence that says everything without needing words. Then the operator's voice returned. Quiet. Uncomfortable. If you're heading east, he hesitated. Be alert, the call dropped. I sat there in the cab seat staring at the empty road ahead. What would have happened if I had stopped? What did those men really want? That smile, that thing in the passenger seat, I never knew the answer. Since that day, my mind's been haunted. I dream about that night of terror. I'm getting more and more paranoid. I really thought it was all in my head, but a month later, at a roadside diner when I made a stop, I overheard two truck drivers talking. Another case. Another ambush. Spikes. A stopped pickup truck. Masked men. But in that case, the driver stopped. His truck was found days later, burned, no sign of the body. My eyes fixed on the road. I knew they were still out there. Waiting for the next victim, waiting for someone who wouldn't see the spikes in time. And above all, waiting for someone who wouldn't drive fast enough to escape. It had been 6 months since I started delivering pizzas. It wasn't the best job in the world, but it paid the bills, and with some luck, the tips helped me get through the month without too much struggle. The only problem was the night shift. If there's one thing that messes with your head, it's driving alone at night. The darkness makes the streets feel bigger, emptier. Every shadow seems to move with a purpose. Every headlight reflected in the rearview mirror seems to follow you longer than it should. I tried not to think about it. On that damn night of horror, I had just finished my last delivery. It was past midnight, and all I wanted was to get home. I took the quickest route, a shortcut through side roads, away from traffic and the city lights. Fewer signs, less wasted time, faster to my bed. At least that's what I thought. I was about 10 minutes from home when I saw the headlights behind me. I didn't think much of it at first. It was a 2-lane road, almost no traffic at that hour. But then I noticed the headlights were too close. I lightly tapped the brake, a polite, give me some space message. Nothing. The car stayed glued to my bumper. I sighed and switched lanes, hoping it would pass me, but instead it did the same. My stomach flipped. I looked in the rearview mirror. The bright headlights blinded me, but I couldn't see who was driving. An uncomfortable feeling began to rise in the back of my mind. Maybe it was just an impatient idiot. Maybe it was just a coincidence. But then it suddenly accelerated and cut right in front of me, blocking my path. My instincts screamed before I could even process it. I jerked the wheel hard to avoid crashing. My tires screeched and my car slid to the shoulder. My heart hammered in my chest. The other car didn't go forward. It slowed down, creeping along the road as if waiting for my next move. My mouth went dry. This wasn't road rage. This was a game. I took a deep breath, trying to control the adrenaline. The best strategy would be to get to a busier area. He wouldn't try anything in a place full of people. I thought about grabbing my phone to dial 911, but before I could reach for it, the other car's brakes squealed. He stopped. In the middle of the road. Nothing moved. Neither did I. An absolute silence dominated the night, broken only by the distant hum of the engine still running. The red glow of the brake lights shone like demonic eyes in the darkness. I felt a desperate urge to accelerate and pass him, but a primal instinct told me he was waiting exactly for that. That's when I saw it. The reverse lights flashed. He was going to reverse. He was coming for me. My blood froze the instant I saw those reverse lights come on. The car started moving backwards, slowly, methodically, like a predator cornering its prey. My mind screamed, "Do something!" I threw the car to the side, trying to go around him, but the second I did, he lunged forward again, blocking my way. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel the echo in my ears. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't a distracted driver. It was a game. And I was the target. I thought about reversing, but the asphalt behind me plunged into complete darkness. No lights, no visible exits. If he followed me there, I'd be done for. So, I did the only thing I could. I slammed the accelerator and charged forward. If he wanted to trap me there, he'd have to react fast. My car's engine roared, the tires burning on the asphalt. I saw the lights of the other vehicle shake when he realized what I was doing. And at the last second, he swerved. I scraped past him, feeling my car sway with the impact of the air. The other driver didn't honk, didn't yell, didn't react in a normal way. He simply waited. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw his car spin and line up behind me. He hadn't given up. The chase had truly begun. My mind was working frantically. If he caught up to me, pushed me off the road, trapped me, what would happen next? There was no one around. No houses, no gas stations, no security cameras. No one would know what happened to me. His lights grew in my rearview mirror. He was gaining speed, getting too close too fast. Then I saw it. A crossroad ahead, an intersection that led to the main highway. If I could get there, maybe I'd find another car, like some sign of life. I floored the accelerator. My speedometer climbed, my breaths coming in short gasps. The car behind me did the same. I didn't look in the rear view. I didn't want to see his face, didn't want to see who was enjoying this. My tires screamed as I took the turn, throwing my car onto the well-lit highway. And then he stopped, out of nowhere. Just like he appeared, he simply gave up. I looked in the mirror. The car was stopped in the dark road, motionless, its headlights shining like hungry eyes. And then, as if he knew I was watching, he waved, a slow, calculated wave, as if saying, "I'll see you next time." My whole body shook. I kept driving, never looking back again. That night, I got home and locked all the doors. My car was still covered in dust from the road. My hands were still shaking on the wheel. The next day, I reported the incident to the police. They listened, took notes, asked if I remembered the license plate. I didn't. Then one of the officers stared at me and said something that's never left my mind. "This happens more than you think." And that was it. No report, no investigation, just a veiled warning that some people like to play with others' fear. Since then, whenever I drive at night, I stay alert. Whenever I see a strange car in my rear view, I change my route. And sometimes when I look in the mirror, I wonder, what if he's waiting for me to let my guard down? And since then, chaos has taken over me. Kansas has these roads that seem endless. Miles and miles of oppressive nothingness, where the horizon dissolves into the dark sky. I had been driving for almost 5 hours, heading home after a weekend visiting a friend in Colorado. The night was cold, the radio crackling quietly, and I was exhausted. That's when I noticed the fuel gauge dangerously close to E. I'd passed a few gas stations earlier, but I kept thinking, just a little more. I'll stop at the next one. Until now, there was nothing in sight. No cars for over an hour, no town on the horizon. My phone flickered between a mere bar of signal and nothing. Then, finally, I saw it. A small gas station falling apart, hidden in the darkness of the road. The neon sign flickered weakly, as if it were dying. The sign said "open," but some of the letters flickered out, turning the word into a sequence of erratic, meaningless lights. If I had any other choice, I would have kept driving. But I didn't. The parking lot was empty. No cars, no living soul, just 2 old gas pumps and a tiny shop with dirty windows and a burned-out beer sign. I stopped the car, turned off the engine, and stepped out. The silence of the place caught me off guard. No wind, no sound of insects, just the distant hum of the flickering sign. Behind the stained glass, a man watched me. He looked to be in his early 50s, his skin marked by time and his eyes empty, too deep. He wore a yellowed uniform and held an old newspaper, but he wasn't reading it. He just stared at me. I stepped closer to the door and tried to smile. "I need to fill up. Pump 1. The attendant didn't move, not even a blink. Then, in a low, dry voice, he said, "Get back in the car. Leave. Now." My stomach dropped. "What?" The man leaned slightly forward as if trying to make me understand something without needing to say the words. "Leave. Don't look back. Just go." For a second, I thought it was a joke, an old crazy man playing with an outsider. But then, I saw it. In the reflection of the glass door, something moved behind the station. 2 silhouettes emerging from the shadows. My chest tightened. I turned too quickly, trying to see better, but the area behind the station was shrouded in impenetrable darkness. When I looked back at the attendant, he was even more tense. "Now." His voice was just a whisper. I didn't hesitate any longer. I spun on my heels and ran back to the car. In the corner of my vision, I saw one of the figures moving, coming toward me. My fingers trembled as they tried to fit the key into the ignition. I heard a thud. I looked up. It was there. A tall man in dirty flannel was standing just a few feet from my hood. His face was partially hidden in the shadow, but I could feel he was smiling. His eyes pierced me. That thing didn't seem human. My brain screamed, "Start this damn thing!" I turned the key, the engine sputtered. The man took a slow step forward. Thud, a sound on the passenger window. The second man, he was so close I could see the dirt splatters on his jacket. His face leaned slowly until his eyes met mine through the glass. I'll never forget that stare. He didn't blink. He just stared. My heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. The man on the passenger window didn't move, just tilted his head slightly, as if studying me. The other one, the one in the dirty flannel, took another step forward. I could see his lips curling into a crooked, artificial smile as if he was enjoying my fear. My hands trembled as I desperately tried to turn the key again. The engine sputtered, coughed, but didn't start. The man next to the car slowly raised a hand and dragged his dirty fingers across the glass, leaving a trail of grease and dirt on the reflection of my own terrified expression. "Start! Damn it!" I shouted at the car, turning the key again. The engine roared, sputtering, and finally started. It was enough to break the spell. The man on the glass smiled wider. The one in the flannel moved, running toward me. I threw the car into reverse so hard the tires screeched on the gravel. The man on the glass took a step back at the last second, but he didn't look scared. He looked amused. My car almost spun when I turned the wheel, heading back to the road. I stomped on the accelerator like my life depended on it, and maybe it did. In the rear view, I saw the two men standing in the middle of the road, watching me. And then, behind them, something moved. A third silhouette, emerging from the shadows of the station. Too tall, too thin in a wrong way. My stomach dropped. I didn't wait to see more. I drove nonstop for 40 miles, my hands trembling on the wheel, my eyes glued to the rear view. The paranoia lodged in my chest, every headlight behind me seeming like a new pursuer. When I finally found another station, a real one, with lights, with movement, with life, I parked haphazardly and practically stumbled out of the car. My whole body was shaking. I went inside, still out of breath, and went straight to the counter. "Call the police," I asked, my voice hoarse. The attendant looked at me strangely. "You okay, man? There's an abandoned station back there. Some guys, they were waiting for someone to stop there." The attendant's eyes narrowed. "Where?" I gave the exact location. He was silent for a second, then let out a nervous laugh. "There's no station there." My chest tightened. "What?" He shook his head. "That station's been closed for over 15 years. My skin went cold. I turned to look out the window. My car was there, dusty from the road. But there was something else. On the passenger side glass, the fingerprints were still there. Driving for Uber at night was usually calm. The traffic was lighter, fares were better, and passengers tended to be more reserved. But sometimes the night hid things that shouldn't be there. That night, I accepted a long ride. A passenger leaving Portland Airport, heading to a rural area on the outskirts of the city. It was almost a 40-minute drive on dark, deserted roads. When I pulled up to the pickup point, I saw the passenger standing next to a small suitcase. He seemed ordinary. Wrinkled suit, tired eyes, a face that would easily get lost in any crowd. He got in the car without saying much beyond a brief, "good evening," before fastening his seatbelt and burying his face in his phone. Great. Easy ride. We drove down the road with barely a word exchanged. The only sound was the soft hum of the engine and the occasional notification from the passenger's phone. Everything seemed normal. Until, a few miles from the destination, I saw a car stopped ahead. It was a black sedan, parked in the middle of the road, no hazard lights, no sign of movement. I slowed down, frowning. Something felt off. I glanced in the rearview mirror. My passenger was still looking at his phone, oblivious to everything. I sighed and muttered under my breath. Maybe it was a broken car, maybe the driver was drunk, maybe it was just my paranoia. But then the reverse lights blinked, and the car started moving backward. Slowly, heading toward my car, my chest tightened. This didn't make sense. I flashed my headlights twice, trying to get attention. No reaction. "What the hell?" I muttered. And then the passenger finally spoke. "Don't stop." I turned my head back. He was still focused on his phone, but his tone, it wasn't a request. It was an order. "What?" I asked. "Don't stop. Don't honk. Don't try to overtake. Just wait." Discomfort crawled up my spine. The black car kept reversing, as if trying to push us back. The road was deserted, with no shoulder. There was no way to turn around. My foot trembled on the brake pedal. My whole body screamed to get out of there now. But the passenger, he was still too calm. That's when he unlocked his phone and subtly tilted the screen toward me. What I saw made me lose my breath. It was a photo of my car, on that road, taken from behind. The caption had a single phrase, "Wait for him to get out of the car." My blood froze. My stomach turned. That photo, it was of my car. On that road, at that exact moment, my eyes darted to the rearview mirror, to the sides, to any corner of darkness around. Who took this photo? From where? How? Listen carefully. The passenger's voice came calm, low, but laced with something that made my chest tighten. He knew what was happening. The black car stopped reversing. It stayed there, motionless, as if waiting for something. My hand was sweating on the steering wheel. When he gets out of the car, you accelerate. Don't think. Just go. I swallowed hard. Dude, what the hell is going on? Do you know him? The passenger didn't answer, but his fingers tightened around the phone. My heart hammered in my chest. For a few seconds, nothing moved. The silence was thick, heavy, like the whole world was holding its breath. Then, the door of the black car opened, and someone stepped out. My muscles froze. It was a man, tall, thin, dressed in a heavy coat and a cap that hid part of his face. His movements were strange, mechanical, as if he wasn't used to walking properly. He turned his head in our direction. Even from a distance, I felt like he was smiling. Now, the passenger murmured. My throat was dry. The man took a step toward us, then another. Now! My foot slammed on the accelerator. The engine roared, the tires squealed, and the car shot forward. The man didn't retreat. On the contrary, he started to run, not in a normal way, in a wrong way. His movements were too fast, out of sync, as if each muscle was moving separately. My eyes widened when he practically leaped to the side of the road, disappearing into the darkness. I didn't look back. I didn't think. I just drove. My breath came in short gasps, my hands shaking on the wheel. The passenger beside me still hadn't moved. After a few minutes, the road became just a road again. No lights, no car in the rear view, just the sound of the engine and the frantic drumming of my heart. Who was that guy? My voice came out trembling. The passenger finally looked at me and then said something that made my blood freeze. You don't want to know. He turned his eyes back to his phone and typed something. A second later, my phone vibrated. A notification. New tip received. $500. My fingers were too sweaty to hold the phone properly. Drop me off in the next town, he said. After that, take another route home. Don't come back this way. Never again. I didn't say anything. I just drove. And I never accepted rides out of town again. Maybe you've experienced something like this. Maybe you felt that eerie sensation of someone following you. If you've been through it, share in the comments. And if you've never felt it, I just hope it stays that way. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time.